I was still a bit skeptical about Daniel Dubois up until about 3 or 4 fights ago. But over the past 3 or 4 fights, he's made a believer out of me. I think Daniel Dubois is one of the best prospects in world boxing. His performance against Nathan Gorman in capturing the British title was fantastic. This is a guy who is absolutely, completely, totally, and utterly dedicated to the sport. He trains like a professional and he's performing like a professional. So the utmost respect to Daniel Dubois, and he's a very, very promising prospect at this stage. However, the reaction that I've seen from many people following his win over Nathan Gorman, in my estimation, is a little over the top. Okay? People saying he can knock out everybody in the heavyweight division right now other than Tyson Fury. And I addressed which crowd I think are saying that for the most part in a separate video. But along with this over-the-top praise of Daniel Dubois is also over-the-top, not even just criticism, but over-the-top trashing of Anthony Joshua. I mean, there are people now in my Facebook group saying that Daniel Dubois right now knocks out Anthony Joshua inside 6 rounds. There was also a post that went up, I think from somebody on Facebook or Twitter, one of the social media platforms. And the post essentially said that now Britain has a real heavyweight prospect as opposed to this manufactured hype job in Anthony Joshua. The over-the-top criticism of AJ has now reached the point where it's crossing over into the realms of the absurd. I mean, that's just completely absurd. Have we forgotten that Anthony Joshua, let's look at who Daniel Dubois fought for the British title. We fought Nathan Gorman. Is Nathan Gorman as good as Dillian Whyte? Most people would say no. Well, have we forgotten that Anthony Joshua, for his British title fight, knocked out Dillian Whyte? Somebody who the vast majority would say is a lot better than Nathan Gorman. Furthermore, they have a mutual opponent in Kevin Johnson, Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua, okay? Kevin Johnson last year went 10 rounds with Daniel Dubois, never came close to getting stopped. Have we forgotten that Anthony Joshua walked through Kevin Johnson in 2 rounds? And that was 3 years prior to the Daniel Dubois fight. Anthony Joshua, in 22 fights, okay, he's now at 23 with 1 loss, but name me a heavyweight in the whole world with a better resume than AJ in their first 22 fights. It's a rhetorical question because you can't name me one because there isn't one. Calling this guy manufactured is so absurd. People are conflating a well-promoted fighter with a manufactured fighter. A manufactured fighter is a fighter who is moved extremely carefully in order to avoid putting him in with a live opponent. That's what a manufactured fighter is, at least in my definition. AJ is actually the opposite of that. AJ is a guy who was moved very fast. Some would say too fast. AJ is a guy who was thrown in at the deep end before he was really ready. And he managed to swim, he managed to find a way to win, but he was thrown in tough early on in his career. That is not a manufactured fighter. Now again, Daniel Dubois, fantastic talent. Maybe he'll prove to go on to be better than Anthony Joshua in the long run. Who knows? But as of right now, Daniel Dubois is not doing anything by way of who he's beaten more impressive than Anthony Joshua did at a similar stage of his career. He's not. And the chances of Daniel Dubois having a resume comparable to Anthony Joshua's after 22 fights, I would say the chances of that are slim. Because again, Deontay Wilder didn't have a resume even remotely close to Anthony Joshua after 22 fights. Tyson Fury didn't have a resume, although his resume was stronger than Wilder's after 22. His resume wasn't as strong as Anthony Joshua's after 22 fights, not even close. So where are we going with this? Oh, he's manufactured. What a load of rubbish. He loses one, again, people conflating a well-promoted fighter with a manufactured fighter. Yes, Anthony Joshua's had the red carpet treatment from the media, from Sky, from Matchroom, from various different sponsors. Yes, he has. But he hasn't been matched easy. Far from it. I've been through this ad nauseum. Compare the first 22 fights of AJ to Wilder to Fury, and you'll see that AJ is levels above the pair of them in terms of how tough he was matched. I'm not saying he's levels above them in terms of ability. I'm saying how tough he was matched was far beyond Wilder or Fury through the first 22 fights. So if AJ's manufactured, well, what are the other two then? What are Wilder and Fury through their first 22? They must be, protected or something, or ridiculously protected, like over the top protected. If you're going to call AJ manufactured through 22 fights. What a load of nonsense, right? When Sugar Ray Leonard turned professional, he had the red carpet treatment, just like AJ. When Oscar De La Hoya turned professional, he had the red carpet treatment, just like AJ. Are you trying to tell me that Oscar De La Hoya and Sugar Ray Leonard were manufactured fighters? No, they were not manufactured. They were very, very real. But because of their gold medal status at the time, it was a big deal. And they got the red carpet treatment subsequently. They were groomed for stardom from very, very early on, from the start of their professional careers, just like AJ was. But just because you're groomed for stardom, it doesn't mean you can't actually fight. Again, somebody who is a manufactured fighter is someone who they match very carefully to avoid putting him in against a live opponent. This is my definition of a manufactured fighter. A fighter who is a real fighter is going to go in there in 50-50s. He's going to go in there in fights that he stands a good chance of losing at the highest level. Yeah? AJ, for his first 23 fights, look at the people he's faced. Compare it to the people that Wilder and Fury faced in their first 23. And then try to tell me who's manufactured. Who the hell was Deontay Wilder fighting in his first 23 fights? And somehow AJ's manufactured? What brand of crack are you smoking? Come on, people, stop it. And in fact, Ray Leonard's ascent to the top was a little before my time. I was alive then, but I wasn't really watching boxing. I was only a little kid when he first came onto the scene. But from what I'm told, there were people at the time, and from what I've seen in documentaries, there were people at the time saying that Ray Leonard was a hype job, was manufactured. Not the majority of people, but there were some people saying that. Same with Oscar De La Hoya. Oh, he's a pretty boy and this, that, and the other. So again, this is this massive mistake that some people make. They conflate being a well-promoted fighter with being a manufactured fighter. Two different things. You could be a manufactured fighter and you're not well-promoted. Nobody knows you, but you've just been matched very, very carefully. I mean, you've seen some prospects out there who get to 20 and 30 and 0. How the hell did that happen? The first time they're put in a competitive fight, they lose. All right? So there's a big difference between being and AJ's been very well promoted. But manufactured, what brand of crack are you smoking? AJ's got flaws, vulnerabilities. He got beat by Andy Ruiz, cool. But he doesn't turn into garbage just because of one loss. And again, this absurd mindset that some people have where they ignore or they try and explain away every single one of Anthony Joshua's tough career wins. People, stop it. You're talking, as Dylan White was, that you're talking rubbish. Yeah, you're talking rubbish, man. Daniel Dubois, he is his own man. A great prospect, but as of right now, he hasn't done anything, which is more impressive than, Anthony Joshua at a similar stage of his career. To be fair, Daniel Dubois had 12 fights. Anthony Joshua won his British title in, which fight was it here? It was against Dylan White. Dylan White was 16-0. Joshua might have been 15-0. So let's say it was Anthony Joshua's 16th fight, so 4 fights later than Daniel Dubois. Of course, Daniel Dubois is much younger than AJ with AJ on his belt, but Daniel Dubois started boxing far younger than AJ too. You see, some people get caught up on age. You see, all age gives you is more time because your physical prime as a heavyweight might be in your early 30s. It differs from heavyweight to heavyweight. I would say Mike Tyson's physical prime was in his very early 20s. But for many other heavyweights, it might be in your very early 30s or mid-30s, your physical prime. Okay, your athletic prime. Maybe in your late 20s. So being very young as a professional allows you more time to improve. Okay? But the age thing, some people misconstrue what it means. They think that, because you're younger, that means that you should be... how can I explain it? If somebody's got 20 fights and they're 20, and another guy's got 20 fights and he's 30, they think that the guy who's 30 should be better after 20 fights than the guy who's 20. It doesn't work like that. It's not about the age, it's about how many fights you've had. Yeah, Anthony Joshua didn't start boxing, I think till he was about 18 years old. Daniel Dubois has been boxing since he was a child. Okay, same with Hughie Fury. Hughie Fury been boxing since he was a child. Hughie Fury turned professional at 18. Anthony Joshua only had his first amateur bout when he was 20 or something? So it's not about your age, it's about when you start boxing. Yeah? Some fighters, they start boxing 8 years old. A guy who starts boxing at 8 years old and has 200 amateur fights, he can turn pro at 18. Do you know what I mean? Or younger than that in some countries. But a guy who doesn't have his first amateur fight till his late teens or early 20s, well, he's clearly not going to be fighting for a British title when he's 21, is he? Clearly. Like Daniel Dubois fighting for a British title at 21 because he started boxing very, very young. So it all depends on how young you started boxing, how much experience you had, overall in terms of how fast you can progress as a professional. This is why I never bought the excuse for Hughie Fury. Oh, but he's only young. Oh, this, oh, that. Daniel Dubois is only young. Daniel Dubois, in my estimation, has probably had a similar amount of amateur experience to Hughie Fury. But look where they are. You know what I mean? I know Hughie Fury's fought for world titles and stuff like that. How old is Hughie Fury now? 24, 25? Okay, Daniel Dubois at this stage is looking more impressive than Hughie Fury. Yeah, we'll see how far he can go. But again, the point I'm making is age is, age isn't as significant as experience is. If you've got the experience, you could be 21 and be world class. Yeah? You could be fighting for world titles at 21 or 20, like in the case of Mike Tyson, if you've got the experience. Amateur and pro. Mike Tyson, when he fought for the world title against Trevor Berbick, I think he had 30 fights. You know what I mean? He was only 20, but he had 30 pro fights under his belt. And one of the advantages that Mike Tyson had when he turned professional is that although he didn't have a major international title under his belt, like he hadn't won the Pan American Games or the World Championships or the Olympics. He didn't have anything like that under his belt. Yeah, I know he had the Junior Olympic title. But other than that, no major international success for Mike Tyson as an amateur. And that's important because gaining major international success as an amateur attracts the attention of major promoters who want to pay you a lot of money to sign with them. Mike Tyson didn't have to worry about that because the very people who built him up as an amateur, Customado, Jimmy Jacobs, Bill Caton, the very people who built him up as an amateur were the same people with him as a pro. So it was a seamless transition from the amateurs through to the pros. He didn't have to worry about trying to win some major tournament in order to secure a big contract. Yeah, that was an issue that Mike Tyson never had to contend with, which is why he was able to turn pro so young and win a title so early. Yeah, because he wasn't trying to stay amateur to secure some big contract. He didn't have to. He already had big people on his side like Customado, who was a veteran trainer and manager who would, train world champions from Floyd Patterson to Jose Torres to Rocky Graziano, etc. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here about Mike Tyson. The moral of the story is all fighters have got flaws. Anthony Joshua's flaws have been exposed and exploited by Andy Ruiz and by some other fighters, but he managed to come through. But let's not get carried away. Let's not get carried away, people. He's still a good fighter. Yeah? He's not trash. He's not manufactured. That's a load of nonsense. Let's see if Daniel Dubois can achieve in 22 fights what AJ did. If he can beat that level of opposition in 22 fights. Maybe he can. And if he can, we give him the credit there and then. But as of right now, man, he's miles off. Haven't done anything like that at the moment. And to be honest with you, it shouldn't be a competition between Daniel Dubois and Anthony Joshua in terms of how fast they can move him and, whether they can get him into this position or that position. Daniel Dubois' journey is his own journey. Yeah? He should be looking to be the best that he can possibly be. Not worrying about where AJ was at any particular time. He should be worried about what's best for him. And in my estimation anyway, AJ was moved a bit too fast. He achieved a tremendous amount through, 22, 23 fights now. Tremendous amount. But ultimately, he was stepped up to world level when he wasn't the finished article or even close to being the finished article in my estimation. Dubois' team could learn from that and move him a bit more cleverly and not so frantically as AJ was moved. Because they were in a real rush to move AJ up. And obviously AJ went along with it. His trainer, Rob McCracken, except they went along with it. But the guy was thrown into the deep end. Even in the amateurs, he was thrown into the deep end. This is why the whole manufactured thing is so absurd. Did you watch the World Championships that Anthony Joshua was in Azerbaijan? Did you watch that? Or are you just talking out your ass without having any knowledge of what Anthony Joshua actually did in the amateurs? And as Boxing Beats and Rhymes said in one of his recent videos, there are some people, some imbeciles, some deeply ignorant individuals coming out acting as though Anthony Joshua lost every fight in the Olympics. Are you dumb? Anthony Joshua, for me as a objective observer, Anthony Joshua lost one fight in the Olympics. That was the first fight to Erisland Savon. That fight, yeah, he lost that fight. As far as I'm concerned, I think the vast majority of people would agree on that. But after that, did you see his win over Ivan Ditchko? Did you see his win over that Chinese fighter? I forget the guy's name. And even in the final against Camarel, that was a close fight. Don't try to tell me that was some robbery. That was a close fight. And by the way, if you think Camarel won that final against AJ, did you see AJ versus Camarel in the World Championships in Azerbaijan? I bet you didn't. All right? Because AJ beat Camarel then. And that weren't no hometown cooking because it weren't in AJ's hometown. It was in Azerbaijan. And Anthony Joshua beat the world-ranked #1 super heavyweight Camarel in Azerbaijan. When AJ didn't even have, a fifth of the experience that Roberto Camarel had in that tournament. So that's not somebody manufactured. That's somebody who was thrown in at the deep end very early, both in his amateur career and in his pro career. Yeah? All these people talking rubbish, go and have a look at the first 22 fights of Wilder. Go and have a look at the first 22 fights of Fury. Compare experience for experience. Be realistic. All right, be honest. Anyway, I'm going to drop this video right here. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. It's happening, I'm out. Today's Patreon podcast is about the very popular Netflix series Stranger Things and the subliminal programming which it contains. If that sounds like something you might be interested in listening to, then head on over to my Patreon page for a free sample. That's right. You can go over there right now and there is a publicly accessible sample of today's podcast about Stranger Things. And if you like that, then I would encourage you to sign up to listen to the full episode, because the free sample is basically the first third of today's podcast is what you get for free. If you want to hear the podcast, the episode in its entirety, you'll sign up and you'll also get access to all my previous podcasts. And we're literally talking about hundreds and hundreds of hours of other material that you get included whenever you sign up. So you sign up, it's less than £3 a month. There's no contract, you can cancel at any time, and you get access to a massive archive of podcasts from me. And as I say, today's podcast is about Stranger Things and the subliminal programming which it contains. All right, so head on over for the free sample, and if it's your kind of thing, then sign up. All right, it's happening, I'm out.